My name is Clara Monroe. For the past 8 years, my world has been a small, green pocket of Northern California, a town called Port Blossom nestled between the stoic silence of redwood forests and the ceaseless sigh of the Pacific. I live here with my husband, Nathan, and our 6-year-old daughter, Lily. Our home is a cedar-shingled cottage, modest and weathered by the salty air, wrapped in a garden that is Nathan's truest canvas. He is a landscape architect, a man who speaks the language of soil and stone, who can coax life from the most stubborn earth. I am an illustrator. My studio is a small, glass-walled room at the back of the house where I spend my days trying to capture light and emotion with watercolor and ink, the scent of damp earth and pine my constant companion. It was the week before Thanksgiving, a time in Port Blossom when the air grows sharp and carries the dual fragrance of the forest floor and the ocean. The last of the autumn leaves, the color of rust and old gold, clung to the branches of the liquidambar trees, and a persistent fog rolled in from the sea each morning, muting the world in a soft, pearlescent gray. Life was a gentle rhythm of school runs, client deadlines, and evenings spent by the fire, reading stories to Lily while Nathan sketched new designs for gardens he would bring to life. This Thanksgiving, like every Thanksgiving, we were preparing for the drive down the coast to Nathan's mother's house in Carmel Highlands. Eleanor's home was a part of our family lore, a sprawling craftsman perched on a granite cliff, its windows a permanent audience to the dramatic theater of the ocean below. The gatherings there were always loud, warm, and filled with the comfortable chaos of extended family. On Tuesday morning, as I was packing a small bag for Lily with her favorite sketchbook and a worn copy of The Velveteen Rabbit, Nathan came into the bedroom, his phone still in his hand. The morning light caught the worry in his eyes, a subtle tightening around his mouth that I had learned to read over our decade together. "That was my mother," he said, his voice quiet. He ran a hand through his dark, unruly hair. "Juliana's coming for Thanksgiving." Juliana. His younger sister. A wave of warmth washed over me. I hadn't seen her in nearly a year. "Oh, that's wonderful, Nathan. It's been far too long. Lily will be so excited." Nathan didn't share my enthusiasm. He walked over to the window and stared out at the misty garden, his shoulders tense. "Yes. Well, Mom says she's been having a very difficult time lately." "Difficult how?" I asked, pausing in my packing. "Just difficult," he hedged, his gaze still fixed on the world outside. "I don't know. Maybe we should plan on just staying for the day. Not overnight. We can tell Mom that Lily sleeps better in her own bed." I felt a prickle of concern, but I trusted Nathan's instincts. He was not a man given to needless worry. He was the calm center of our family, the steady hand. If he was unsettled, there was a reason. "Of course," I said softly. "Whatever you think is best." He turned from the window and gave me a faint, reassuring smile, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. A silent question hung in the air between us, but I let it be. Some family matters are like tightly coiled knots. You can't force them to unwind. You have to give them space and wait. The drive down Highway 1 on Thanksgiving morning was a pilgrimage through beauty. To our left, the redwoods stood as silent, ancient sentinels. To our right, the ocean churned, a vast expanse of slate-gray water breaking into white lace against the rugged shore. Lily sat in the back, her face pressed to the window, narrating the journey of a lone seagull that soared alongside our car. Nathan seemed to relax as we drove, the familiar landscape working its quiet magic on him. He pointed out different species of cypress, their forms bent and shaped by the relentless wind, and spoke of the resilience of the coastal flora. "Look, Lily," he said, his voice regaining its usual warmth. "See that patch of orange flowers? Those are California poppies. They can grow right out of the rock." "They're brave," Lily whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. As we neared Carmel, the fog began to burn away, and the sun broke through, scattering diamonds across the water. Eleanor's house came into view, clinging to the cliffside, its dark wood and river stone chimney looking as if they had grown there. Smoke curled from the chimney, a welcoming plume against the now brilliant blue sky. Several cars were already parked in the gravel drive, and the sound of laughter drifted from the open front door. "We're here," Lily announced, unbuckling her seatbelt the moment the car stopped. Nathan took a deep breath, a small, centering ritual I had seen him perform before every major family event. He turned to me, his expression now carefully composed. "Ready?" "Ready," I smiled, squeezing his hand. Eleanor met us at the door, enveloping us in a hug that smelled of cinnamon and roasting turkey. She was a handsome woman, her silver hair styled in an elegant chignon, her eyes the same deep, thoughtful brown as her son's. "You're here." I was getting so worried. The traffic must have been dreadful. "It was fine, Mom," Nathan said, kissing her cheek. "The coast was beautiful today." "Grandma." Lily launched herself into Eleanor's arms. "Oh, my little love," Eleanor laughed, lifting her. "Look at you. You've grown another inch. Your red coat is just lovely. Come in, everyone is on the back deck." The house was filled with warmth and light. The large living room, with its vaulted ceiling and massive stone fireplace, opened onto a wide wooden deck that seemed to hang suspended over the ocean. Aunts, uncles, and cousins mingled, their voices a cheerful symphony. The air was thick with the savory aroma of Thanksgiving dinner and the clean, salty tang of the sea. I found a quiet corner on the deck, nursing a glass of sparkling cider and watching Lily reconnect with her cousins. Nathan was quickly absorbed into a conversation with his uncle about a new drought-resistant grass. I felt a sense of peace settle over me. This was family. This was what the holiday was for. About half an hour later, a sleek, silver car pulled into the drive. I saw Nathan's posture change, a subtle stiffening of his spine. A moment later, Juliana walked through the living room and out onto the deck. She was as striking as ever, tall and slender with the same dark hair as Nathan, but where his was wild, hers was styled in a severe, perfect bob. But she looked fragile. Thinner than I remembered, with a pale, translucent quality to her skin. There were faint, lavender shadows beneath her eyes that her makeup couldn't quite conceal. Her gaze swept the deck, passing over the adults and landed on Lily. Her entire being seemed to light up from within. "Lily," she breathed. Lily looked up from the seashell she was examining. "Aunt Juliana," she cried, running across the deck. Juliana knelt, her movements swift and graceful, and caught Lily in her arms. She held her tightly, her face buried in Lily's soft, brown hair. It was more than a greeting, it was the embrace of someone who had found a life raft in a stormy sea. I watched, my heart aching with a sympathy I couldn't yet name. When Juliana finally drew back, she kept her hands on Lily's shoulders, her eyes scanning my daughter's face as if memorizing every feature. "My goodness, you are so beautiful," Juliana murmured, her voice husky with emotion. "I've missed you so much." "I missed you too," Lily said happily. "Did you bring me a present from the city?" Juliana's laugh was a little brittle. "I brought you me, sweetheart. Is that enough?" She stroked Lily's cheek, her touch lingering. I felt Nathan move to my side, a silent, protective presence. Later, I offered to help Eleanor in the kitchen. The vast, professional-grade space was a whirlwind of activity. As I began to chop parsley, Eleanor came and stood beside me at the enormous butcher block island. "It's good to see Juliana, isn't it?" she began, her voice low. "I'm so glad she came." "She looks tired," I said carefully. Eleanor sighed, her shoulders slumping. She stopped polishing a wine glass and looked at me, her eyes clouded with a mother's pain. "Tired doesn't begin to cover it, Clara. She's heartbroken. Her last round of IVF failed. It was the last one. The doctors told her it's over. 5 years of her life, of needles and hormones and hope, all for nothing." My hand stilled on the knife. "Oh, Eleanor. I am so sorry. I had no idea." "She doesn't talk about it," Eleanor continued, her voice trembling slightly. "She tries to be strong, but it's eating her alive. That's why seeing Lily is so important. She just needs a child's love to heal her heart. It's like medicine for her." I glanced through the pass-through window into the living room. Juliana had Lily on her lap, showing her something on her phone. Her focus was absolute, as if the rest of the room, the rest of the world, had ceased to exist. I understood her pain, I truly did, but Eleanor's words, it's like medicine for her, sent a shiver of unease down my spine. A child isn't medicine. A child is a person. When we returned to the deck, the scene hadn't changed. The other children were playing a boisterous game of tag on the lawn below, but Lily remained with Juliana, captive in her aunt's intense orbit. "Lily, sweetheart," Juliana was saying softly, tucking a stray strand of hair behind Lily's ear. "You have your mother's eyes, you know. But your soul feels like mine." The words were poetic, beautiful even, but they hung in the crisp sea air with a strange weight. Nathan cleared his throat. "Lily, your cousins are starting a treasure hunt. Don't you want to join them?" "Okay." Lily scrambled off Juliana's lap, instantly drawn to the promise of a game. Juliana's smile faltered as she watched her go. She tried to mask her disappointment, but I saw it clearly, a flicker of deep, raw loss. As the afternoon light began to fade, turning the sky to shades of apricot and lavender, Eleanor called us to the dining room. The long oak table was a masterpiece. A burnished, golden-brown turkey sat in the center, surrounded by a constellation of side dishes: garnet-hued cranberry sauce, mounds of creamy mashed potatoes, bright green beans almondine. Candles flickered, their flames dancing in the reflection of the polished silverware. It was a picture of familial warmth and abundance. Yet the unease I'd felt earlier had crystallized into a quiet dread in the pit of my stomach. It was a mother's intuition, a primal, nonverbal alarm bell ringing softly in the back of my mind. We all took our seats, a happy jumble of family finding their places. Juliana was seated across from us, but after we had all started serving ourselves, she stood up, a bright, brittle smile on her face. "Would anyone mind if I switched with Uncle Richard?" she asked the table at large. "I'd love to sit next to my favorite niece. I feel like I haven't had a real chance to talk to her." "Of course not, dear," Eleanor said, beaming. "Richard, you don't mind, do you?" The swap was made, and Juliana slid into the chair beside Lily. Immediately, she began to fuss over her, spooning more sweet potato casserole onto her plate, cutting her turkey into perfect, bite-sized pieces, wiping a non-existent smudge from her cheek with a napkin. She was performing the role of a mother with a heartbreaking, desperate precision. "Thank you, Aunt Juliana," Lily said, enjoying the attention. I exchanged a look with Nathan across the table. His jaw was set, a muscle twitching almost imperceptibly. Halfway through the meal, in a lull in the conversation, Juliana turned her radiant, intense gaze on me. "Clara," she said, her voice carrying across the table. "I've had the most wonderful idea. Lily and I have been getting along so well. Why don't I ever come and stay with me in the city for a few weeks over the Christmas holiday?" The clinking of forks and knives seemed to quiet. "A sleepover?" I asked, keeping my tone light. "More than that." Juliana's eyes shone with a feverish excitement. "An adventure. I can take the time off work. We'll go to the museums, the Academy of Sciences, we'll see the Nutcracker. I have a lovely guest room, and I'd fill it with toys and books just for her. It would be our special time." My heart sank. I knew I had to say no, and I knew how it would be received. "Juliana, that's such a generous thought," I began, choosing my words with care. "But Lily is still so young. A few weeks is a very long time for her to be away from home, from her routine." "Oh, Clara, don't be so rigid," Eleanor chimed in immediately from the head of the table, her tone one of gentle chiding. "It's a wonderful opportunity for Lily. And frankly, it would do Juliana a world of good. That's what family is for, helping each other." The focus of the entire table was now on me. I felt like a specimen under a microscope. "Family helping family is important," I agreed, my voice steady, though my hands were trembling slightly under the table. "But my first responsibility is to Lily's well-being. And I think being away that long would be too much for her." Juliana's face crumpled. The bright smile vanished, replaced by a look of profound hurt. "You don't understand," she whispered, her voice cracking. "You have her every day. Every single day. I'm just asking for a few weeks. What are you so afraid of?" "I'm not afraid," I said softly. "I'm her mother. I'm making the best decision I can for my child. Are you? Juliana's voice rose, losing its whispery quality and gaining a sharp, accusatory edge. Are you sure you know what's best? Maybe she needs something you can't give her. The air crackled with tension. I felt pinned by the weight of their collective expectation, their judgment. I looked at Nathan, a silent plea for help. He pushed his chair back and stood up, the movement sudden and decisive in the strained silence. Lily, Clara, he said, his voice calm but infused with an undeniable urgency. Let's go check on the bonfire I was setting up in the garden. The air in here is a little thick. I was confused, but I rose without question, taking Lily's small hand in mine. What about dessert, Daddy? Lily asked. We'll be right back, Nathan said, his hand resting on the small of my back, guiding us out of the dining room. He didn't lead us toward the back deck and the garden. Instead, he steered us down a short hallway toward a small, glass-paned sunroom at the back of the house. It was where Eleanor kept her dormant orchids and fuchsias over the winter, a cool, dim space filled with the ghostly shapes of sleeping plants and the faint, earthy smell of potting soil. Nathan, what are we doing? I started to ask as he ushered us inside. Just for a minute, he said, closing the door behind us and turning the old-fashioned skeleton key in the lock. The click was unnervingly loud. Stay quiet. He pulled us behind a large, terracotta pot that held a dormant hibiscus tree. Lily pressed against my side, her small body tense. Is this a hiding game, Mommy? She whispered. Sort of, sweetie, I whispered back, my heart beginning to hammer against my ribs. Through the dusty panes of the door, we could see the light from the hallway. We heard footsteps, quick and agitated. Lily? It was Juliana's voice, high and strained. Sweetheart, where did you go? The game's over. The footsteps came closer, stopping right outside the sunroom door. We could see her silhouette, a dark shape against the light. She cupped her hands around her eyes and peered in, but in the dim, cluttered room, we were hidden in the shadows. Lily, she called again, her voice changing, becoming softer, more intimate, a strange, cooing sound. I know you're in here. Don't hide from me. Please don't hide from your mommy. Mommy. The word hung in the cold air, sharp and terrifying as a shard of glass. I pulled Lily closer, my arms a vice around her. I felt Nathan's hand on my shoulder, a firm, grounding pressure. We heard the doorknob rattle. She was trying to get in. When it wouldn't turn, she jiggled it more frantically. Then, she knocked on the glass, not a polite tap, but a hard, frustrated bang that made us all jump. Let me in. Her voice was no longer soft. It was a raw, desperate cry. She's mine. You can't keep her from me. We heard another set of footsteps, Eleanor's. Juliana, dear, what on earth is wrong? She asked, her voice flustered. They just went for a walk in the garden. Calm down. Juliana's response was not words, but a sob that tore from the depths of her soul, a sound of such profound anguish that it seemed to shake the very foundations of the house. She's gone, she wailed. They took my baby away from me again. Nathan waited, his body a rigid shield in front of us. He listened until the voices and the sound of sobbing receded back toward the main part of the house. Then, with movements that were swift and silent, he unlocked the door. There's a side door off the laundry room, he whispered, his face grim in the half-light. We're leaving. Now. He led us through the quiet, darkened service areas of the house. I could still hear the murmur of confused voices from the dining room, a backdrop to our stealthy escape. When Nathan opened the side door, the cold night air was a shock to my senses. It smelled of salt and damp earth, the clean, indifferent scent of the wild world outside the suffocating drama of the house. Nathan didn't say a word. He scooped a bewildered Lily into his arms and led me by the hand to our car, our feet crunching softly on the gravel. Daddy, why are we leaving without saying goodbye? Lily asked, her small voice full of sleep and confusion. It's okay, sweetheart, I murmured, buckling her into her car seat. We'll call Grandma from home. As Nathan started the car, he didn't turn on the headlights until we had coasted silently down the long driveway and were back on the coast highway. In the rearview mirror, I could see the warm, inviting lights of Eleanor's house shrink until they were just another star in the vast, dark expanse of the cliffside. I felt like we were fleeing the scene of a shipwreck, the echoes of that terrible, broken cry still ringing in my ears. The drive home was shrouded in a heavy silence. The familiar beauty of the coastline was now ominous, the waves crashing against the rocks below like a manifestation of the turmoil we had left behind. Lily fell asleep in the back seat, her head lolling to one side, her breathing soft and even. She was safe, but I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that we had narrowly avoided a danger I was only just beginning to comprehend. "Nathan," I finally said, my voice barely a whisper. "You have to tell me what's going on. All of it." He kept his eyes on the winding road, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "When we get home, Clara." "I promise." Back in the sanctuary of our own small cottage, the quiet felt profound. The scent of pine and redwood welcomed us home, a balm to our frayed nerves. After I tucked a sleeping Lily into her bed, covering her with her favorite quilt patterned with constellations, I went back to the living room. Nathan was standing by the large picture window, staring out into the blackness of the forest as if the trees held some answer. "Explain," I said, sinking onto the sofa. "Please." He turned to face me, and in the soft lamplight, I saw the full weight of his exhaustion and sorrow. "You deserve to know sooner," he began, his voice rough. I kept hoping it wouldn't come to this." He sat down on the armchair across from me, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. "Juliana's problems are much worse than Mom let on. It's not just grief, Clara. She's unwell. Her mind has started to blur the lines between what she wants and what is real." He told me everything. How, after her final IVF cycle failed, Juliana had begun to construct an elaborate fantasy life. She had created a private Instagram account, a digital shrine to a life as a mother, posting photos of Lily that she'd saved from my own social media pages, writing long, detailed captions about their imaginary days together. She called her Daisy in the posts, Nathan said, his voice thick with disbelief. She gave her a new name. My blood ran cold. Who was she showing this to? No one at first. It was a private world she'd built. But then, it started to leak into reality. A few weeks ago, she sent out a birth announcement to a few distant relatives, using one of Lily's baby pictures. My cousin called me confused. That's when I knew how bad it was. "Oh, Nathan." I covered my mouth with my hand, a wave of nausea washing over me. "I confronted Mom about it," he continued, his voice laced with old frustration. "She knew. She'd seen the account. But she called it a harmless fantasy, a coping mechanism. She said I was being cruel and unfeeling to even question it. She actually asked me if we would consider letting Juliana be a bigger part of Lily's life. To let her play mommy on weekends, to ease her pain." I stared at him, speechless. The conversation at the dinner table, Eleanor's insistence that we help family, suddenly took on a horrifying new meaning. They hadn't just been asking for a sleepover. They had been asking me to lend my child to my sister-in-law's delusion. As if on cue, Nathan's phone, sitting on the coffee table between us, began to ring. The screen lit up with a picture of his mother. He let it go to voicemail. A moment later, it buzzed with an incoming text. Then another and another. He picked it up, his face hardening as he read. "It's Juliana," he said, his voice flat. He turned the screen toward me. "Give her back to me. She's my light. The universe sent her to me to heal me. You stole my baby? You are a monster." Then the phone rang again. This time it was Eleanor. Nathan answered, putting it on speaker. "Nathan, thank God." Eleanor's voice was frantic, laced with panic. "You have to come back. Juliana's locked herself in her old bedroom. She's screaming. She says she won't come out until her daughter comes home." "Mom," Nathan said, and I had never heard his voice so cold, so full of steely resolve. "Juliana needs a doctor. Not Lily. She is a danger to herself, and today she was a danger to my child." "Don't be so dramatic," Eleanor cried. "Her heart is broken. Can't you have any compassion?" "My compassion ends where my daughter's safety begins," Nathan said, his voice shaking with a rage I had never witnessed in him. "You have to call for help, Mom. A crisis team. A psychiatrist. This is beyond you. Your love is smothering her. Real love protects, Mom. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." There was a long, choked silence on the other end of the line, then the sound of a sob. "I don't know what to do," she whispered. "Yes, you do," Nathan said gently, his anger receding, replaced by a deep, resonant sorrow. "You know what the right thing to do is. You just have to be brave enough to do it." He ended the call. The silence that filled our small living room was absolute. We just sat there, two people trying to absorb the seismic shift that had just occurred in our family's landscape. 2 hours later, Nathan's phone rang one last time. It was his mother. Her voice was weak and thin. She had called a mobile crisis unit. Juliana had been taken to a clinic for psychiatric evaluation and care. The months that followed were a season of quiet healing. Winter settled over Port Blossom, draping the redwoods in rain and fog. We retreated into the sanctuary of our little family, the rhythm of our days a comforting anchor. We took long walks on the deserted beach, collecting sea glass and driftwood, watching Lily run ahead, her laughter swallowed by the roar of the surf. Nathan poured his energy into our garden, building a new stone wall, his hands finding solace in the solid, honest work. I found mine in my art, filling pages with images of the forest, of the ocean, trying to capture the feeling of finding shelter in a storm. We learned that Juliana had been diagnosed with a severe grief-induced psychosis, exacerbated by years of hormonal treatments. Her delusion that Lily was her child was a fortress her mind had built to protect her from an unbearable reality. She was in a good facility, receiving the intensive therapy she so desperately needed. Eleanor, humbled and heartbroken, began her own journey in therapy, learning the painful difference between enabling and loving. In early spring, when the first wildflowers began to pepper the coastal meadows, a letter arrived. The envelope was thick, creamy cardstock, addressed to both of us in an elegant, unfamiliar script. It was from Juliana. I opened it with trembling hands. "Dear Clara and Nathan," it began. There are no words in the English language sufficient to express the depth of my regret and my shame for what happened on Thanksgiving and for the months leading up to it. I have spent the last 3 months in treatment, learning to look at the person I became, and it is a painful, horrifying sight. I was very, very sick. My grief over my infertility was a sickness, and it metastasized, twisting my love for your beautiful family into a dangerous obsession. I lost my grip on reality. In my mind, Lily became the child I had lost, a belief so powerful it felt more real than truth. I cannot imagine the terror I must have caused you both. Nathan, you were right to protect your family from me. What you did that day was an act of profound, difficult love, and I am, in a strange and painful way, grateful for it. You saved me from causing irreparable harm. As part of my recovery, I am learning to grieve properly. I am also learning what healthy love looks like. I have started volunteering at a local animal shelter. Holding a frightened kitten, earning its trust, giving comfort without demanding anything in return, it is teaching me something vital. I know that I need to keep my distance for a while longer. This is not to punish you, but to protect you, and to give myself the time I need to become whole again. I hope that one day, when I am truly well, you might allow me back into your lives. I dream of being an aunt to Lily. A real aunt who can love her for exactly who she is, not for who I needed her to be. With deepest remorse and hope. Juliana. I read the letter aloud to Nathan, my voice thick with tears. They were not tears of sadness, but of relief. It was a letter of immense courage, of raw honesty, of hope. She's finding her way back, Nathan said quietly, his arm wrapping around my shoulders. Another Thanksgiving arrived. The air was crisp again, the leaves on the liquidambar trees turning to fire. This year, the gathering was at our house. It was small and quiet, just the 4 of us and Nathan's parents. The mood was not celebratory in the old way, it was something deeper, more reflective. While Nathan and his father tended the grill on the patio, Eleanor and I stood in the kitchen, preparing a salad. "I was so wrong, Clara," she said suddenly, her hands still in the bowl of greens. I thought I was helping her, but my sympathy had made me blind. You were the one who was truly protecting her by setting a boundary. You were protecting all of us. I am so sorry I put you in that position. We were all just trying to navigate an impossible situation, I said, and I meant it. Forgiveness, I was learning, was not an event, but a process, a quiet letting go. Later, as we sat around our small dining table, the late afternoon sun slanting through the window, we talked about Juliana. She was doing well. She had moved into her own apartment and had just been approved to become a foster parent to older children, a path she had chosen carefully with her therapist's guidance. She was rebuilding her life, not on a fantasy, but on a foundation of service and hard-won self-awareness. After dinner, I was in my studio, cleaning my brushes and looking out at the garden Nathan had so lovingly cultivated. Lily was out there, her red coat a bright splash of color against the darkening greens, collecting pine cones in a small basket. My phone rang, and I smiled when I saw the caller ID. I answered. "Hi, Juliana." Her voice was calm and clear, without the brittle, high-pitched edge I remembered. "Hi, Clara. I wanted to call and say Happy Thanksgiving." There was a pause. "I'm really thankful for you all. For my family." "Happy Thanksgiving, Juliana," I said, my heart full. "We're thankful for you, too." I looked out the window at my daughter, safe and happy in the garden, at the steadfast, ancient trees that stood guard around our home. Family, I thought, was not a simple, easy thing. It was a complex ecosystem, capable of both profound wounding and profound healing. It was learning to love someone enough to let them go, and strong enough to welcome them back when they found their way home. It wasn't a bond forged in perfection, but one tempered in the fires of our shared, messy, beautiful humanity. And for that, I was truly, deeply thankful.